Hello and welcome back to Broken Lance Hobbies. I'm James, and today this video is going to be the first of a small series called Diorama Diaries, where I'm going to learn how to make a diorama. Never done one before. I've only just started really basing my minis. I know, heresy. But I'm going to be learning how to do a diorama and basically planning and executing to make something pretty cool that I can either display here or enter into a painting competition later down the line. Who knows? Not sure how long it's going to take. Life outside of the hobby is on the horizon. My summer leave is almost over, so this video is going to be a bit of an experimentation as well, continuing the learning journey for video editing. We're going to be doing a bit more of a screen record, maybe have my face down in the bottom right corner. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so this is a learning experience again as well. But yeah, let's crack right on. So here we are. What I've got up on the screen at the moment is the centerpiece of the board on Miro. Miro's like a collective workspace sharing app that I've been introduced to recently at work. Centerpiece is the logo I'm using for the channel at the moment, which is the sort of made-up logo I made for my guard regiment, the Cadian Lancers, which I'll probably do a video on one day. But yeah, so the board app's pretty good. I'm using the free version right now, but basically what I'm going to scroll across to is, because you can grab and scroll, which I find quite useful, but we're going to grab and scroll across to inspiration. So inspiration for this little diorama is the Ursula Creed mini. I'm okay with the Ursula Creed mini. I think it shows her off as a more seasoned general officer, but that's where I don't like the fact that you have general officers on the table in 40k. Just have like captains, majors, maybe colonels, just maximum. Having a general officer at the front line dressed like that, just silly. And we could battle harden her up a bit by adding a helmet, but the helmet they added is, sorry, it's not good. I don't like it. It's silly. Like when you have a perfectly good guard helmet there, and then you give her like some weird Krieg-esque Fritz helmet. It just makes no sense to me. But I did like the Cadia sort of banner eagle. It's not an eagle. It's not an Aquila. I'm going to call it an eagle. The Cadian eagle, because it's sort of like a French imperial eagle. But yeah, so I like that. I like that that's standing behind her, sort of silhouetting like she's plonked it in the ground, and that's Cadia standing. Wherever she stands, Cadia stands. But didn't sit with me that she'd be like an older general officer sat at the front line, and I wanted to have like a diorama where I wanted a model to be usable on the table where she's younger, less experienced, but still leading from the front, maybe as a Kazakin captain. And then I saw a really good thing on Facebook where I thought, oh, I could do that. So I basically went and bought the minis. So somebody converted the Unbroken Astra Militarum mini into like a early in life Ursula Creed proxy, and I was like, yes, I want a bit of that. So what I've done is I've got these two minis, and they're going to be the sort of starter of inspiration for this. I've got the mini. Now the intent is to make it so the mini can be placed in the diorama or moved out and played on the table. So that's going to be magnets more than likely. But yeah, so I've made up the mini, which you'll see on the screen here. I may have got excited and built it before I started the YouTube channel. So there's no video of me building it or going through the process. Sorry. But yeah, so that's the centerpiece of the diorama, which is going to be a playable mini as well. Bit of inspiration for the whole elevated uphill piece is this, the cover for Cadia Stands by Justin Hill, the first Minkelesque novel. And yeah, I like the whole going up to a center point, layers of stuff going on. I think it's quite a bit of this is a bit of a last stand pose, which leads me on to, I don't want this to necessarily be a last stand pose. I like this picture of Ursula Creed from the older editions where he's pointing forwards and they're advancing. You've got like the gun there, the rifle in there. It's like the combined arms, everything's going forward. It's an attack, not a final stand. And then we've got the precious old Kazakin senior NCO there, which is the inspiration for that Unbroken miniature. What else did I take inspiration from with this then? Leaders using radios. Big fan of handheld mics. Always have been, even though they're less useful than having a headset. But what we've got up here is a picture of an American from 2nd Cavalry Regiment, 2nd Cav. There's a ranger and a sapper, and then he's got somebody from 10th Mountain over there, so probably joint exercise or whatever. But yeah, on the net, he's got his ATAC terminal out, his end user device, basically commanding troops, and he's got his handset out to communicate to higher. And then I like that silhouetted picture of a vehicle commander or a dismount communicating off the handset. I like that silhouette. What other things am I looking at then? Well, firstly, what am I listening to? I'll put a link to my top film and game scores in Spotify, which is sort of what I'll use to listen to it to get sort of hyped up for the old inspirational film and game music. And then for more inspiration, what do I want to add? I want this to be like a tiered piece, so I'm going to add, the gun. I like this British soldier using American equipment. It's an old one because he's still wearing a Mark 6 helmet and PLC webbing, not modern Virtus, if you watched the last video. American gear firing downwards like he's just plonked his gun down and he's just laying into them. Then we've got an SF gun here from probably the Royal Welsh Reservists, looking at the patch. But yeah, I like that. SF gun, support fire, sustained fire, general purpose machine gun, that's a setup. It's more akin to what you get with Warhammer Imperial Guard heavy weapons. And then the cityscapes. These are just typed in ruined cityscape. Thankfully, there's some online art images and I don't really have to look at whatever this AI art has generated online, which is probably why AI art shouldn't really be a thing. It's a bit ish. But yeah, so that's some of the inspiration for it. But then if we scroll across to the story, a diorama is like a snapshot telling a story, right? And that's what I like about miniatures and dioramas. It's a snapshot of a moment in time. And if you get the chance to go to Warhammer World and visit the exhibitions up there and you see all the mad dioramas they've got there, it's a snapshot. It's a snapshot of something massive and fantastical happening, and there's always tiny little details in the stories. There's some really great ones there. Also, if you ever saw the old Halo 3 Believe trailers, masterpiece in diorama art and storytelling. There's all like just part of the marketing campaign and actually bore no resemblance on what happens in the campaign. It's good. It's great little storytelling. The music, it was the way the diorama worked. And I remember the website you could go on. Thought that was really cool. So what do I want? The key sort of things I want for this is I want it to be triumphant. I want to be the clearance of a hilltop with the hero at the top, slack handful of various survivors of this charge or defensive action. And then, like, maybe if I was to put a plaque on it, it'd be like Captain Creed and a forlorn hope assault force finally raised the Caden Gate over the ruins of a bunker complex they just secured. And to me, that's like, they're a bit of a heroic story. They finally got where they need to go. And then what that really sort of can allow us for is a bit of like dynamic storytelling with the sort of the hill that they've been fighting and dying on. So what I've done here is I've sort of set out like a little triangle which is essentially my front angle elevation, and then as you can see I've got that like 360 degree elevation spot map. So the concentric rings, the ones into the middle are higher up and the ones further out are lower down, and that's the sort of levels I want to put these soldiers on. And then that would translate to the reference images I've put in. So I've got the SF gun team, Imperial Guard gun team, then I've got Ursula Creed at the top with that Cadian Eagle sort of in what would be backlit. So this backlit is going to really shine out. Then I've got like another commander observing and then another guy taking a pot shot at the enemy, whoever they are. I'm not decided yet, as they retreat off the field of battle. So yeah, I think that's sort of the way I want to go with the front of it. And then I'm not 100% decided on the back of it yet. And I might just allow that to just be a natural process that happens. And then, yeah, we come over to the model side. I've got the Astra Militarum Combat Patrol. I've got the Kill Team for the Kazakin. I've already mentioned I've got the Unbroken and the Ursula Creed models. One I haven't added on here that I will throw in a little screenshot of now is the Astra Militarum SF or Heavy Weapons Team. Astra Militarum Heavy Weapons Team, because they've got a lot more kneeling dynamic poses. We've got the new modern 10th edition plus heavy weapons kits. So I'm going to add them in there. And the plan is to just have it be like a load of survivors from a load of assaulting units of this combat team that have gone forward. Materials wise, then I've got XPS foam, which sort of everybody's goes on about. I've got myself some cork board, broken that up. That's going to be like big bits of rubble. I've got some PVA glue that's going to protect the XPS foam, because if you've ever seen that happen where you put glue on it, it melts through and then it looks like something from Aliens. And then I've gone on and got some colour forged baiting materials, some big and small cork to add on to it. So yeah, I think I've got all of the materials I relatively need so far, but what I'm probably going to do is just like see where it takes me, because I've had like ideas. If I want big wiring in, I can just see if there's any old cables lying around at home, something that doesn't need a plug anymore. Not while it's plugged in, safety tip. And then yeah, see if I can add some things to it that way. So I've got my board out. I've got marked off. Basically, I want it to be like 20 by 25. I don't want it to be too big. So what I've got there is the 20 in. Wrong. I've got the 20 down and the 25 across. So this area is going to be my sort of build zone. Doesn't have to be too neat because it'll neaten up, so I can get rid of all that when the time comes. Now I think first layer at the bottom of it is going to be some foam board, and I am just winging this here, which if my old man knew about, he'd probably kill me, because he's a very big firm believer in measure twice, cut once. Measure twice, don't let your tape measure fall over. Nicely done, J-Lo. Nicely done. J-Lo is one of my plethora of nicknames at work, which are all situational dependent, depending on who knew me at the time. So here we go, cutting through that foam, just ensuring it's nice and safe, using the blade, making sure I'm trying to cut in a safe direction down that mat so I don't damage the work surface. I use the excess foam you can see here to just sort of create that extra layer. I know I want this diorama to be multiple levels, so I'm going to use that excess to try and elevate the models a bit. Starting to use that cork board as a back, sort of a facade on the front of the foam, just to make sure it doesn't look like foam. I'm not at the level yet where I think I could make that foam into something really fancy and realistic, like a lot of these more professional models and diorama makers. But as you see there, I'm happy now with the dry fit. I figured out where I want to place it to give the elevation, so I can mark it onto the foam, give me that rough idea of where I want it to go, and I'm going to apply a PVA glue layer if I can get the lid off. And that PVA glue layer is going to create a seal, so that any solvents and super glue or anything polycement drips onto it isn't going to melt through it like in Aliens, like when the xenomorph blood gets onto it. So good spread of all the PVA, making sure that gets everywhere, so it provides that good seal foam base. What I then do is I take the foam and the cork board, and I'm going to start placing that down, and that PVA glue can form a really good seal going forward once it's cured properly, to basically not allow it to all fall away. And then when I'm happy with that, what I'm going to do is cover it in small cork chunks from the basing kit.
You see someone that you know and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And I didn't film that. I may or may not have forgot to press record, so there's no footage of me doing that, but it was a lot of me sprinkling like Salt Bae and then making sure it all stuck down and then shaking it all off and putting it back on again. But we move now on to the models, prepping the models. I already did Ursula Creed. I got carried away before I started the channel, so I built her up. That's the model and the shape I want. And now I'm going to start going through the KDM, or the Astro Militarum Combat Patrol box and the Heavy Weapons Squad box. Start breaking away and making the piece. I sort of know that I want at least a section or at least 8 models on there in varying poses. I want people kneeling, which is why I got the heavy weapons sprue, and I want people standing and running. So between those two kits, I've got a real good mix of like materials and models, poses to sort of build up into like this dynamic snapshot. But yeah, that's the base of the first kneeling model done, and I move through the rest of the models now with a bit of speed. Much faster when sped up, actually. Believe it or not, this is 1000% sped up, so you can imagine how long it took doing this. Then once all the models were ready, I took them outside, put them blue tacked into bases, and just spray them up so they've got a good undercoat ready for me to start painting. And I promise you, Sally, I will thin my paints next time. Whilst outside then, I took the opportunity to spray up the diorama using Colourforge Standard Grey. Once that had dried, I came in and started using the Pro Acryl extra fine concrete paste, just to sort of get that texture in. So, I'm going to call it there with this video, as it's meant to be part of a series, and I realised quite quickly I was getting carried away and doing stuff, not filming it. So, to summarise, I've built the base. I planned it. I've come up with a plan. I figured out where I was going to stick everything. I've stuck it all down, hoping that it'll last. I've lathered it in paint, and yeah. So I'm at the planning phase, and at the planning phase ended, I've started the execute phase. We're on the build phase now, so that's built. I've got my soldiers modelled in the poses I want. They're base painted, sprayed, good to go. So now the next video holds the responsibility of me painting all this, talking through the stories of everyone and the story of the diorama. And yeah, so thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.